My name is Anna Snyder, and in this video I will be going over the key ideas and main takeaways from Chapter 15 in our textbook. This is the Chapter 15 overview. These are the topics that will be covered in this video. If you'd like to take a moment to just read this slide over. All right, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is the definition and purpose of case study research. Case study research is a qualitative research method that involves taking an in-depth look into a specific person, group, classroom, school, or program within its real-world setting. The goal is to gain a detailed understanding of that particular case and how it functions within its unique context. Case study research helps people understand a real-life situation in a way that feels meaningful and relatable. Because it focuses on one specific case in detail, readers can connect what they learn to their own experiences. What a person takes away from a case study often depends on their background and their experiences, as well as how similar the case is to situations that they have seen before. The purpose of case study research is to gain a deep understanding of a specific person, group, program, school, classroom, or event within a real-life setting. So instead of looking at many participants, researchers focus closely on one case to understand what is happening and why. Case study research allows a researcher to study phenomena that are not easily or appropriately studied by other research designs. And case study research is appropriate when the researcher wants to answer a descriptive question, so for example, what happened, or an explanatory question, so for example, how or why did something happen? All right, so the next thing that we're going to look at are the key characteristics. All of the key characteristics of case study research are listed here. One of the main characteristics of case study research is that it is particularistic, which is really hard to say, which means it focuses on a specific case. This could be an individual student, a classroom, a school, or a program. And rather than studying a large group of participants, the researcher examines one case in depth to better understand a particular group or phenomena, or a particular issue or phenomena. And then case studies are also descriptive because they provide a rich, detailed picture of the case being studied. Researchers collect information from multiple sources and describe not only what happened, but also the circumstances surrounding the case. This detailed description helps readers understand the complexity of the situation. Another characteristic is that case studies are heuristic, which means they help researchers and readers gain new insights. By exploring a case in depth, readers often develop a better understanding of the issue and may see connections or perspectives that they had not considered before. Case study research takes place in a real-world setting. So instead of removing a phenomenon from its environment, researchers study it within its natural context. This helps them understand how the setting, people, and circumstances influence what is happening. And then finally, case studies are holistic because researchers look at the entire case rather than focusing on just one variable. They consider how different factors interact and influence one another to create a complete picture of the situation. Together, these characteristics make case study research a valuable method for gaining an in-depth understanding of complex educational issues and real-world situations. Okay, so on this next slide, we're going to be talking about case study research design. The first step in designing a case study is creating clear research questions. And according to the textbook, this is one of the most important parts of the process because the questions guide the entire study. Case study researchers often ask how and why questions to understand a phenomenon in depth. Researchers must clearly define what the case is and establish its boundaries. So a case could be a student, a classroom, a school, program, or district. And defining boundaries helps determine what will and will not be included in the study and helps to keep the research focused. The next step is to select a theoretical or conceptual framework. So researchers also identify a theoretical or conceptual framework to guide their study. This framework helps shape how they view and interpret the phenomena being investigated. The textbook kind of explains that researchers do not enter a study without prior knowledge or perspectives, so it's important to make those guiding ideas explicit. And then before collecting data, researchers review existing literature related to their topic. So this helps them understand what is already known, identify important concepts and theories, and refine their research questions. And then researchers then decide how many cases to study. So a single case study focuses on one case, while a multiple or collective case study examines several cases. And the choice should be based on what will best answer the research questions, not simply on studying more cases. And then finally, researchers select the case or cases that will provide the most useful information. So the goal is to choose cases that help them gain a deeper understanding of the issue being studied and answer their research questions effectively. So once the case study has been carefully designed, researchers can begin collecting data from multiple sources to build a detailed understanding of the case. So case study research uses purposeful sampling, meaning that participants are not chosen intentionally because they can provide rich and meaningful information. The goal is not to get a large sample, but to get participants who can help explain the case being studied. So then next, researchers also focus on a specific unit for analysis, such as one student, one classroom, one school, or even a school district. This depends on the research question and what the researcher is trying to understand in depth. And then participants are selected because they are directly connected to the phenomena being studied and can provide useful insight to it. So in case study research, quality of information is much more important than the number of participants. And most of the time, a small amount of participants are used. So then next, researchers also make sure that the case is viable before fully starting the study. So this means that they check that participants are willing to stay involved and have the knowledge and experience needed. This may include reviewing documents, doing informal interviews, and checking willingness to participate. And then next is data collection methods. So case study researchers use multiple types of data collection methods, such as interviews, observations, documents, and sometimes visual materials. Using more than one source helps create a more complete picture of the case. And then a key idea in case study research is triangulation. This means combining multiple data sources to confirm findings and increase credibility and accuracy of the results. All right, and then next we have conducting and analyzing multiple case studies. So in chapter 15, the textbook talks about multiple case studies, which you might also hear called collective, multi-site, or comparative case studies. Basically, all of these mean the same thing, and they involve looking at the same topic or phenomenon across more than one setting. So instead of focusing on just one classroom or school, the researcher looks at several different sites, and each one is a separate case, but they are all connected because they're studying the same issue. The main reason that researchers do this is to look for patterns and also differences. So they're trying to see what stays consistent across the different sites, but also how context might change what's happening in each place. A big part of this process is something called cross-site analysis, which is basically comparing the cases side by side. This helps the researcher figure out whether the findings are unique to one setting or if they show up across multiple sites. Another important point is that data collection and analysis happen at the same time. So as the researcher is doing interviews or observations, they're also already starting to look for patterns, make connections, and adjust what they focus on next. And then overall, multiple case studies help researchers get a complete picture of the phenomenon by seeing how it shows up in different real-world settings. So now that we know what multiple case studies are and why researchers compare sites, these are some of the specific tools that they use to actually analyze all of the data. So one tool is called a meta matrix, which is basically a way to organize all of the data from each site into one large chart so you can compare everything in one place. Another strategy is a site-ordered matrix where you can organize the causes based on different levels or categories, like high-performing versus low-performing sites, so that you can start to see differences more clearly. There's also a predictor outcome matrix, which helps the researcher look at what factors might be influencing certain outcomes in each case. A time-ordered matrix is used when timing matters, so it shows how different events happen over time and how those changes might connect to the results. Scatter plots are another tool, and those are more visual. So they help show patterns, relationships, or clusters between different variables or themes. And there's an effects matrix, which looks at possible cause and effect relationships and the consequences of certain actions or conditions across the cases. And then finally, causal models take it a step further by mapping out how different variables are connected and how they might influence each other and the outcomes of the study. So overall, all of these tools help researchers make sense of a lot of complex data and start turning it into clear patterns and explanations across multiple sites. All right, and then the last thing that I have for us is the example of a case study research from the end of the chapter. So this study examined a single-bounded case. So it examined the partnership between the University of Massachusetts Boston Teacher Education Program and the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative, also called DSNI. So the researchers wanted to understand how a university could build meaningful relationships with local communities to better prepare future teachers for urban schools. So the case was studied over approximately 2 years, allowing the researchers to observe changes and developments as they occurred. So consistent with case study research, the authors collected data from multiple sources, including meeting minutes, reflective journals, informal interviews, and project documents. Rather than testing a hypothesis, the study focused on gaining a detailed understanding of how the partnership developed and what lessons could be learned from it. The findings were presented as a very rich narrative that described both the successes and challenges of integrating community voices into teacher education. Overall, this study reflects key characteristics of case study research because it investigates a real-world issue within its natural setting. It uses multiple forms of evidence, and it seeks an in-depth understanding for a specific case rather than producing findings that are intended to be generalized to all teacher education programs. So that was my summary of Chapter 15. I hope that you learned a lot, and thank you for watching.